This is The Spot, a BYU-Idaho radio production where we talk about what you're talking about at BYU-Idaho. Today's hosts are me, Isabella Salazar,
Andy Ordonez,
Brogan Houston,
Valeria Coles.
The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university and are solely the opinions of the hosts.
Good morning to you all. Today we're going to be talking about class recommendations. And with that class recommendations, we're just going to go over a couple topics like the classes that we've enjoyed and that have like life skills or classes that are typically fun or cultural classes, like for example, classes talking about countries or society and, you know, their perspective and whatnot. And then we're also going to be talking about challenging classes that we didn't think were going to be like this, whether it was like a lot of work or a little bit harder than we anticipated and so on and so forth. And then at the end, we'll be talking a little bit about the FLATS exam. And if you don't know what the FLATS exam is about, then just wait. And after that, towards the end, we'll have our famous quiz that we always do in our podcast. So yeah, let's get into it. So for me, let's just start off actually with the cultural classes that we've taken. I know we've all talked a little bit earlier about that we've taken different types of cultural classes. For me, my favorite cultural class that I've taken is Introduction to the Middle East. The reason why I think it's a really cool class and a good class that people should take is because it teaches a lot about a culture that I feel like many of us here in BYU-Idaho aren't familiar with. I know a lot of us have an LDS background, so a very Christian background. And we can pick up some stuff from Judaism, you know, that we understand and can relate with. But I feel like for the most part, none of us really know much about just Islam or Middle Eastern culture and whatnot. And in Florida, I grew up a lot with a lot of Middle Eastern. So that class really was an eye-opener. And yeah. But what are classes you guys have taken?
Well, kind of to go off of what you're talking about with Islam, I'm taking world religions right now. And we just learned about Islam, and I think it's really cool because they frame it in a way that's like, this is what they believe, and this is how so much of what they have is what we have as well. Like they believe that Jesus had a divine birth, and they believed he was just a prophet. They didn't think he was like the son of God, but they still revered him as a prophet. And they're an Abrahamic religion, right? So they also believe in Abraham and Moses and all of that. And I really admire a lot of what they practice with their 5 prayers a day and the different like prostrations to show their like submission to God. I think that's a really cool thing. So yeah, it's great to learn about all these different religions and cultures.
I'm in that same class right now, and we haven't gotten quite to the Islam part yet. I'm in a different section than Isabella, and I have a different professor, but it's also been interesting to learn about. We've done Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism and Confucianism, a bunch of the Taoism. So we've learned about all these different cultures that I knew the name of each one, and I might have known maybe like a fact or two about some of them, but that was it. And now I feel like I could give a good basic understanding of most of those religions if I were ever called upon to do so. And I think that's a really cool thing that we get to learn about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think it's so valuable. And who is your teacher?
I have Brother Venema.
Okay, and I have Brother Woodward.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Brother Woodward. I love him. He's such a good teacher. He does a good class. He does a good job teaching that class. Like, I just remember learning a lot from like all those different religions. And it's funny because you think, because like, typically a lot of us are what's the right word? After we graduate, we'll like move on to Utah and stuff like that. Hopefully not everyone, but but like I still have a lot of friends that are from Florida, and again, they're from all different types of religion. I just talked to a friend a couple months ago about his religion, and he's Hindu. So it was just really eye-opening just having a conversation with him about his religion. And even though he's not practicing, like he was like, "Wow, Andy, you really know a lot about your stuff." And I was like, "Oh, world religion, great class, take it."
That's cool. Yeah. And another class that I've taken that kind of goes along with this is the interfaith cooperation class.
Oh, that's cool.
I actually took that one before world religions, which normally people do it the other way around. But that one's really cool. It talks about pluralism and how, diversity isn't necessarily the goal. There's like diversity is neutral. It's not good or bad. It's just a fact. Whereas pluralism is like a mutual respect between people of different cultures or religions in this case. And so that's what we should be striving for, is understanding each other, respecting each other, and working together. Not just having our own silos, but being a community. So I think that was super cool. And you had a little interfaith experience with your Hindu friend. So that's cool.
Yeah,
What teacher did you take that from?
I took it with Brother Gardner, Ryan Gardner.
Yeah, okay. I've heard of that class. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
It's a good one. They also have the Interfaith Leadership Society.
Yeah.
So
the teacher came out and reached out to me because I took one of his classes. And after he was like, you should be part of this class at Interfaith because it's so interesting to learn about all these different cultures and how they work and how they act.
Yeah. And that's a little bit of that, the cultural ones. But there are other classes as well that I know we've all taken in the past, like life skills. And Isabel, you talked earlier about some life skill classes that you've taken. What are some that you would recommend to listeners?
Totally. I took a money management class, which I think is something that everyone should take. We learned about like the different kinds of credit cards and about loans, home loans, car loans, how to buy a car, like what you should do. Tell them you have cash. Don't tell them how much cash, but let them know you're willing to buy, and just all of these just really helpful tips. That one was a good one that, again, I think everyone should take. It talks about budgeting, like all these things, like investing. I think it's just super important for everyone.
Did you take that class before you were married or after you got married?
I took it like right after I got married.
Okay. Yeah. Would you recommend that class though to people that aren't married yet? I guess in preparation for it?
Totally. Yes. Take it now.
I'm going to take some heat for saying this if my wife ever listens to this, but maybe she should take that class. We should cut that part out.
Right now, I'm taking a healthcare administration class. And my teacher always says, he's like, I think everyone should take this class because it really does talk about what type of like Medicare and insurances you should get and the like debts that students get into sometimes. Like sometimes we just run off without insurance and everyone's personal preference. But he talks about the safeties of it and how much money you should invest in insurance and all these things. And so he talks about the things that you should be aware of. And for me, I went in and I was wanting to learn about healthcare. Like I didn't know we were talking about insurance so much. But I'm so grateful I did because I talked to my dad after. I'm like, deductibles and like paybacks and all these things like upfronts. And my dad's like, yeah, like this is things you should know. And I said, wow, like if I never took this elective, I wouldn't have known that. And it's a choice. Like I wanted to take it, but it's so interesting to learn about healthcare coverage, especially at such a young age.
Yeah, I think, people always say like, oh, we need to learn these things in school. No one teaches us these things in school, but this is our chance to learn these things in school, So yeah, that's super helpful. Another class that I took was developmental psych lifespan. It just goes through the lifespan of a person. It's one of the psychology classes. And that one I also think everyone should take because it's great for like parents or future parents talking about infancy and childhood and then, like young adulthood talks about us right now and, helps us prepare for the future as we get older. And one of the projects in that class is it has you interview someone in each stage of life. And so that's just super insightful to get advice from people and to just think back to how I was at, whatever age. And I think that one's another great one for everyone.
So how does that interview process go when you have to go to the person that's about to conclude their life? How do you say, hey, Grandma, you're the oldest person I know. Can you do an interview?
Yeah, for that one, I think it was just anyone over 60. So,
okay.
That's
pretty safe then.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So
one of the interesting classes that I took was Nutrition 150. It was a nutrition class, but it was all based on how it affects you as an individual and how you can feed yourself and your family, I suppose. But it wasn't based on the science of anything, or it wasn't, you barely learned about the anatomy of the stomach or the cells or the whatever. Like it wasn't that kind of a nutrition class. It was the type of nutrition class where it's like, hey, here's what you should eat. Here's what you shouldn't eat. Here's the quantity of things that you should eat. Here's the maximum amount of certain vitamins that you need and the minimum amount of certain vitamins you need. And it kind of opened my eyes to nutrition, I suppose. Like I've never been, I'd say a bad eater, but I've never been a really good eater until I took that class. And I realized the importance of getting all the vitamins you need and eating well-balanced meals and everything like that.
Yeah, so actually, you bring up a good point with that because we've all talked about classes that are beneficial to us, like with healthcare or just budgeting and finances and nutrition. do you guys feel like after taking those classes, you guys have applied what you've learned in your daily life? You can be honest.
I think it's one of those things where for lots of these classes, you leave the class and you think like, oh man, I'm gonna do so much better at this. In my case, I'm gonna be such a good eater from now on, and I'm going to only eat the things that I need to eat. I'm not gonna eat any junk food. I'm gonna be perfect. I'm gonna do this. And then a week passes and you forget that you even took that class. And so
I got the A. I'm good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got the A. I think I got a B in that class. Don't tell my mom. But so I think the important thing is to take little things out of each class, because we're not going to be perfect at any of it, whether it's nutrition or world religions. We're not going to remember every little tidbit that we learned, or finance type of classes. We're not going to remember every little thing. Find a useful thing that you can, at least one thing that you can take going forward and actually apply it into your life. So for this nutrition class, I still don't eat perfect, but I take vitamins every day. And I didn't do that before, but now I do. And I think that's just a little thing that I can do to make sure I'm a little bit healthier. And the same can apply to all those other classes.
Yeah, I love that. That's smart. Conversely, what I usually do is if it's a class that I find to be really helpful, I'll usually buy the book so that I can just always refer to it. And then I keep my notes. So for a lot of classes, I've gone back to look at my notes from like either a notebook or online, whatever. And that's been super helpful too, to just, I'm paying money for these classes. I want to remember what I learned. So
That's true.
yeah.
In my healthcare class, I feel like it's more like a future thing because I'm still my parents' insurance, which is nice. But but I think that's so true. With the little small things, there's like a teaching in there. It says with your insurance, they talk a lot about like fraud and things that happen with fraud with that, like watching how much your insurance actually covers. And some people like have insurance covered like in service and out service, whatever, in the hospitals. And so I think that's something that I never realized, and I realized my parents were always so cautious about. And so I think now after I'm like, oh, I want to be more cautious about those things in the future. I want to take those. But some things are also, for the future.
That's cool. And again, I know I hit the topic of applying it. And do you guys feel like, though, apart from applying it, that you guys, I guess, recommend those classes to other people? Like when someone asks you, it's like, hey, I'm thinking of a class to take. Are those the classes that you immediately think, oh, take this class? And why is that? I know we had talked about what the class is about and how that's impacted you, but do you guys feel like that's a class that it's an easy class, or, the work is not as, I guess it's not as demanding as other classes, and et cetera?
I'd say that about the nutrition class for sure. I took it as my general science elective, and as a communications major, it was my only science class that I needed. And it was easy enough. Like I said, I think I got a high B, maybe a low A, I don't even know. But I got a better mark than I had ever gotten in a science class in high school. And it was interesting and useful, and it applied as a science credit, which is what I needed. So if somebody's out there and asking like, hey, what should I take as a science credit? 100 times out of 100, I'll say take that. It's the only science class I ever took, so I can't speak for any of the others. But
I'm in the same boat
awesome.
as you. The only science class I took was a nutrition class,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that.
Andy's over here. He's a communication major, and he's taking Chem 105 and Chem 106.
I heard
think.
that. I was
Yeah.
like, why?
Yeah, it was, we don't have to really go too much into this, but before I was a communications major, I was a biomed major. So I took Chem 105, Chem
I
106,
didn't know that.
Bio 181. Yep, that was,
Did you want to be like a nurse or a doctor? Or
I wanted to be a doctor, yeah.
Of what
Wow.
specialty?
I wasn't sure yet.
Wow.
I was just like, yeah, I want to try it out. And I was like, this is not the greatest thing in the world. I didn't realize how hard OChem was. And yeah, biology was difficult. The first Bio 181, when I first came from my mission, I was like, this is rough. So I have taken a couple natural science classes, and they're not the funnest thing in the world, I'll be honest. But they're definitely, what's the right word? They're time consuming and they're hard. Like you have to put a lot of time into it and studying. But yeah.
Well, the smart thing that you did there was you took at least a few semesters worth of biomed major classes so that you could tell people that you were a biomed major and that you were really smart.
There you
and
go.
then after you already had friends, then you could switch to communication.
Yeah,
That's
and then, but it's funny because every time I tell people, it's like, oh, before I was a communication major, I was a biomed major. They're like, what did you do?
Yeah.
So you're not as smart as I thought you were. Okay. And I'm like, oh, okay, guys, I'm
I
sorry.
mean, there's, yeah. But another class that I thought was really useful was mass media and society. It's all about like media literacy. And I know Val has some alternative thoughts to that class.
Or some
but
passions. Well, overall, I think it's a great class. Like, I go to class and I think it's cool how we learn about, you were talking about awareness of mass media, of how social media, one, can really just overtake us and honestly, in a way, can like put us in bondage because there are lots of like addictive things from it, like the screen and timing and the way they advertise things. And so we definitely learn about how different organizations and companies and people use it like as ads and how they try to catch your attention all the time. I think I went in the mentality of going in expecting like, we do talk a bit about history of mass media, like how it started, like televisions, black and white, and how it's built. Although I had the mentality of how can we use this in a positive way in our lives, because it is something addictive and it is something that lots of people are like, I don't want to use it anymore because it's so hard, or I don't want to use it because I feel like it's draining my time. And so my mentality is always like, oh, okay, then what can we do to make it better? What can we do to use it in our lives in a productive way? Because the church uses it. Like if the church uses it, then there must be a productive way. And I've yet to still find that answer. And it's just kind of like, it's addictive, it's hard. So that's my contrary.
Yeah, no, totally. Because I mean, I think everyone should take it just because most of us are not media literate. You know, we probably don't realize when an ad is sucking us in and like what methods they're using, or, you know, how we can just kind of get on the scrolling loop. And something in that class that we did was my teacher, it was Brother Henderson. He had us like kind of have a goal to not be on our phones as much. And he was like, go on a walk for 30 minutes and don't bring your phone with you, you know? And so it's funny because it is like all about media, but also he's kind of teaching us to take a step back from it. And so, you know, I think I can totally see how it would feel like a very negative kind of class or like content, but I think it's just to open our eyes and help us to be aware so that we don't get sucked in.
Yeah, and I remember actually, it's funny because I took that class like 2 years ago, and I was like, I don't remember much about it, but as we're talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah. I remember when I took it with Brother Robbins, I thought it was a really fun class, but I remember he told us, okay, all right, so go on your phone, go in the setting, turn off the color, like the color aspect of it, and see what that does for the next couple of days. And I was like, okay, that's a little weird. I was like, okay, so my phone's in black and white the whole time. And I realized my usage of Instagram, Facebook, all those social media things, and even the little games I had just dropped significantly. Because like psychologically, those little color things that pop up a lot, like they just, you naturally gravitate towards them. And so that's what a lot of those apps and, you know, all those things on our phones, they try to grab our attentions. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And so every once in a while I think back on that and I'm like, okay, that's what they're doing that. And so I just think it's interesting how those classes, like the things that we remember that like still help, that we apply later on. I just think it's interesting.
That is true. He gives us lots of challenges like that too. Like, I think every time we go to class, there's always like, okay, like how many hours are on your phone? And people are like, 8. And he's like, what? Like, that's crazy. And I notice in there, I'm like, wow, like I think we all have the same problem that we're on our phones a lot. And honestly, lots of people are in there because they want to learn how to be better with their phone management and with reels and going on all these things. And so I think it really is, I need to change my mindset, but more of like, can I use media literacy better in my life? And so that's awesome.
Love it or hate it, it sounds like these are easy assignments. Leave your phone when you go for a walk, turn your color down. Like, come on, guys.
For some people, it's like, this is so hard.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, it's funny. There's a class that everyone says, especially like in the comm department, but I see it overall in every major. The people are like, oh, what class should I take that's easy? And people say this class all the time, and this is a little bit embarrassing, but I don't agree with. But it's called interpersonal theory. Yeah.
Theory and practice.
Yeah.
Interpersonal theory and practice.
And so like for a lot of people, it's an easy class, and
Really?
it probably is an easy class. For me, and this is a little embarrassing, I have failed that class twice because I was like, oh, it's just it's just work, I guess. You just have to do it if you check in or like the discussion boards. And I'm like, oh, I'll just do that later. I'll do that later. Oh, that's a 0 for this week. Oh, shoot. Okay, I'll just do that later. And then I just forget about it. And I just, like, I don't know, I just didn't do so well.
Yeah, it was the exact same way, except I didn't fail it. I think I did get a pretty good mark on it, but it was my very first semester on campus, and I think that's the only reason that I did so well on it, because I was expecting college to be this like really hard thing, and like everything's going to be really time consuming and really difficult. And so I put 100% into every single assignment, no matter what. And that's the only reason that I got a good grade in that class, because it was time consuming. Mm-hmm. It was lots of memorization and not a lot of like exams or anything, but you really had to know what you were talking about for sure. And yeah, same kind of thing. I did not think it was going to be that kind of thing. And looking back, it's probably one of the harder classes I've taken.
Who have you guys taken this class with? That's what I'm interested in.
So I took it online, and so online is my kryptonite. Taking it online is horrible for me.
Yeah.
Like, I forget assignments like crazy when I'm doing something. Like, I look on Canvas and I'm like, oh, look at that. I have an assignment on Friday. But I don't read that it's a discussion board and you have to reply to things like 2 days before.
Yeah.
And so when I look on Friday, I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't have time to do it. So,
who'd you take it with?
I had Brother Bean, and I did it on campus.
Okay, that makes
Brother
sense.
Bean is good. He is, he's a very good professor. He really knows what he's talking about, and he's very assertive and tells you how he feels and everything. Yeah. And that's a good thing for that class. So
I think it's
he's
so
a
true.
good teacher.
I've heard so many things about interpersonal theory, and I'm honestly so excited to take it. Like, I wanted to take it last semester. I was like, no, not yet, because I have heard like it's time consuming. And then I waited on this semester because I want to take it fall with like lots of people, because I'm just excited, because I've heard it's just so much fun and you learn lots of things, but I heard it's time consuming. I'm going to take it with Brother Judkins just because I took his organizational and principle class, and I heard, and for me at least, that class was like the best to learn about how to communicate with people and leadership styles. And so that's so interesting that you guys said it's so much work, because I'm so excited for it.
It is. I've heard that the Brother Judkins section is really good as well. I know somebody that's not even a communications major, but she TA'd that class like 5 or 6 times because she loves it so much with Brother Judkins.
Yeah, I actually took it with Brother Judkins. But for me, I took it over Zoom. So
What?
I didn't really like it that much. But
I think you have to take it in person, interpersonal, like to get the whole experience.
Yeah, I didn't do that. That was probably my kryptonite. Yeah, it wasn't fun. But speaking of fun classes, what are some classes that you guys have taken that are fun, that you guys have like, oh man, this is one that it's like a hidden gem?
I think this one's kind of basic. I think a lot of people take this one, but social dance. I took it with my husband when we were engaged. So that was fun. We got to use what we learned in our little wedding dance, So I think that one was a good one. And if you go when you're engaged or married, then you only dance with your person. But if you're single, then you dance with everyone else in the class. So, people also use it to find dates. So that's one.
So when I wake up from nightmares and I'm like sweaty and screaming, it's because I was in a social dance class in my nightmares. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I would not.
That's so funny.
That's just me. I really liked the canoeing class that I took. And it sounds like kind of a joke class, but it was actually a little bit difficult. It was challenging. It was obviously you exert yourself a lot. One of the like final things that you do is a full day trip. So you leave at something like 7 a.m. or something like that, and you don't get back till it's dark outside, and you canoe the whole time. But yeah, you spend the whole time going out to like Rigby Lake and Warm Slough and places like that. And you learn how to control the canoe, and you learn all the strokes. You learn how to be the front person or the back person. You learn how to get back in it when you flip, all that kind of stuff. And just be prepared to be a little bit chilly because it's Idaho in April when the class starts, maybe May when the class starts. So it's a little bit chilly, but really useful. And even I don't own a canoe, but my family owns, a kayak and a couple paddle boards, and we live like in a city that's nestled between a whole bunch of lakes. And so when I go back home now, I can use those same types of maneuvers to maneuver these other watercraft that we have, even if they're not canoes. So for me, it was really useful. You do have to be a recreation management major or minor to take it. So don't tell anybody this, but I added a minor in recreation management so that I could take that class.
I was going to
no
say,
longer
just
have that
change it
minor.
for that semester.
That's so funny.
I no longer have that minor, but it was really cool, and I just wanted elective credits, and so it was cool.
Yeah, it's crazy how many, I guess, like outdoorsy electives are out here. Like when you mentioned that earlier, I'm like, no way. There's a canoe class out here, and it makes sense because we're in Idaho.
Yeah,
as well.
and there's also backcountry skiing.
Yep.
There's rock climbing. I think there's backcountry camping, something like that.
But you just have to add that outdoors.
Exactly.
Like,
Wow,
you have to add
honestly,
that minor.
if you don't have a minor, sounds like what is it? Recreation
Management.
yeah. That's the minor to have.
That's fun.
Staying on that, actually, the intramurals class is something that is really, really cool and really fun to take. You don't need to be in, I guess, any minor or anything like that. And the intramural class is such a fun class. You learn about all the sports that happen here on campus, how sport is invented, how a sport is grown, and it's a really chill class. I think I've gone 130% on the class. It's really easy, but it's
That
really
boosts your
enjoyable.
GPA from failing mass media and society.
Oh yeah. It definitely boosts my GPA a bit, especially when I was a biomed major. But yeah, it's really easy and it's really fun. Like you genuinely that's probably the only class where I learned everybody's name, and that was actually part of the test. You have to memorize everyone's name, and I can still remember a lot of those people's names. Like in every one of my classes, I can think there's like 2 or 3 people that I don't remember in that class. I remember everybody because it's so heavily like group oriented. It's so chill. It's so fun. And it's an easy class. Highly recommended.
Okay, wait, quick question really fast. What are our names, Andy? Just kidding, you don't have to.
It's a hard one. Yeah, you might not get it.
So I was like, play the intro again.
So another member of our team collected a soundbite from someone about a class that she really liked. So we'll go ahead and listen to that.
The class I would recommend is home gardening. I really enjoyed this class and it taught me a lot about self-sufficiency. Each student got to pick their own garden plot and pick 6 different vegetable varieties to grow from seed. It was really satisfying to watch each of these vegetables grow. I took this class from Reese Nelson, and he was a great professor.
I have a roommate actually who took that gardening class,
Oh, really?
and she loves it.
Cool.
And our whole entire apartment is full of plants, but not complaining because it's beautiful and it smells nice. But she loved that class too.
That's really cool. I would be interested in taking that class if this weren't my last semester. Maybe I would.
You can ask your wife.
Yeah, this is also her last
never
semester,
mind.
but that's okay.
Never mind.
We do have a bunch of plants. We're growing some basil and rosemary and stuff.
You could take it
cool.
online, I've heard online classes are
That's
great.
Andy's go-to.
Yeah, but there's a ton of fun classes. There's a ton of really good classes that people can take. Like again, we just mentioned life skill classes, overall just fun classes, and just cultural classes that can really help you overall in your life in the future. But I know we mentioned the flat test in the beginning of the episode, and so Brogan, I know that you and I have taken the flat test before. So do you actually want to introduce a little bit about what it's about?
Yeah, so the FLATS exam is a language test. FLATS stands for the Foreign Language Achievement Testing Service, and it's a test that tests your ability on a foreign language. So if you grew up speaking another language like you did, Andy, or if you learned a language on your mission like I did, or what have you, you speak a second language, then you go in and you take this test. It costs $50. It took each of us about an hour and a half to do it, and it was pretty basic, pretty easy. I think if you were to do Duolingo for a year, you'd probably be able to take this test. It really just sees if you have the capability to hold a light conversation in that language. And like I said, it's really easy. It's pass or fail. It's worth 12 credits, so a full semester. And it counted for me for part of my humanities credits and then a bunch of elective credits. So take it early on in your degree if you can, so that you don't have to take nearly as many classes and you can just graduate a semester earlier. Yeah, I'd recommend it to anybody that even if you served a mission in a foreign language, but you were only out for a few months and then for whatever reason you had to come home or something like that, you probably still have a good enough understanding of the language to take it and skip a full semester, to me, that's worth it.
Oh yeah, $50 and you get 12 credits. Like, it's insane. And I know
It's basically free. Like, that's a whole
Yeah,
semester.
that
Like,
really
that's
is.
tuition
Yeah,
for
yeah.
$50.
And you don't have to pay for like any of the additional costs for going to school for that full semester either, because like, you know, housing and food and whatever. I mean, you'll still have to pay that eventually, but you'll hopefully be working an actual job and,
Yeah.
and all that.
But no, but you literally save thousands of dollars, which is the crazy part. And I know some people, when we talked about like class recommendations, we're like, oh, take this class. This one's fun. This one's great. Some people, as you said, Brogan, they just want to graduate early. They just want to take their credits and just move on. This is a great opportunity for you to do that.
I was going to say, I feel like the flat tests are people for, they know what they want. They know what they want to graduate in. And then they just, like, okay, I have all these electives. What do I do? Some people do study abroads, but some people just take the flats and graduate. That was something that I wanted to do. I thought I knew what I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take the flats and I'm just going to graduate. But then I realized, dang, actually, I kind of want to keep exploring. And since I already know Spanish and I'm already fluent, I was talking to the advising and they're like, maybe you don't need to take it because you're already fluent. But if you want to take those credits to kind of investigate other classes, then do that. But if you just want to graduate, take the flats, and obviously it's easy because you know Spanish, and then go and take it. So there's those. If you want to graduate fast, do it. If you know Spanish, you want to keep exploring credits, then go explore.
The other thing I'll say as well is it's risk-free. Like, it's not going to affect your transcript at all if you don't take it. Or sorry, if you take it and you don't pass, it's not going to affect your GPA or anything like that. So it's a risk-free thing. You lose $50 if you fail and an hour and a half of your time. I think that's a good gamble to take.
Oh yeah. And again, like as Brogan, as you were saying, like it's not a hard class. It's not a hard exam. It really, really isn't. I was psyched out the first time, to be honest. I was like, oh man, this is going to be really hard. And I'm a native speaker, but like I've been living in the US for 15 years. So I'm like, man, I'm going to struggle. I took it and I'm like, that was the easiest thing I've ever taken in my life. And again, it's just really easy for 12 credits. Think about it.
Yeah, I would compare it to the harder levels of Duolingo. It's really comparable to that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but there's also a quiz that we're thinking about doing as well. And Isabella, I know you have the quiz, right?
I do. Let's do it. Okay, so these questions are mostly about enrollment, a little bit about credits, and all the data is from this semester, spring 2024. So the first question is about how many students are enrolled at BYU-Idaho for this semester, and that's face-to-face, that's online, BYU-I pathway, all of it. So the first option is A, 30,000, B is 36,000, C is 28,000, and D is 24,000.
D, for sure. Lock it in.
Okay.
Let's go with D.
Was it 24?
All right. Well, the answer is B.
We're all wrong.
Whoa.
36,000.
36?
Yes.
Oh, is that
Because
including
it's in-
online?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
The exact number is 35,915, but we rounded up. But yeah, the number keeps going up. So, and even during COVID, the enrollment still increases.
I see. I was thinking it was on campus. I was like, there's no way there's 35,000
Yeah,
or
I know.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
36,000.
Okay, so now, how many students out of the total amount enrolled at BYU-Idaho are actually enrolled in on-campus classes?
Like in person.
Yes.
Okay.
So, A, 20,000, B, 14,500, C, 17,000, or D, 12,500.
I'm going to go with C because I look at the parking and I don't think there's enough parking space for 20,000.
There's not enough parking spaces for like 800 even.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
going
12.
to say A. I think it's 20,000.
Ooh.
Okay, so you say A, Andy says C. What do you say, Val?
What was the last one? 12,000?
12,500.
That one.
Okay, you got that one right, Val.
Let's
Go.
Now, that is students who are enrolled in face-to-face classes.
Yeah.
As far as students who are considered campus-based, that would be closer to the 17,000. But they just are not all taking classes right now.
Oh.
So,
okay.
Interesting.
yes. All right. About how many campus-based students are married? Now, it could be A, 3,000, B, 4,000, C, 5,000, or D, 6,000.
I'll go with A. I have a
A, 3,000. Okay.
Is B 4,000?
B, 4. Yes. Okay.
I am a communications major, and one of the only things I know is letters and spelling in the alphabet. So you said A, you said B, I'll go C.
Okay.
That sounds about right.
All right.
That's so funny.
Okay, the answer is B. It
Let's
is,
go.
about 4,000.
All right, Val, how are you getting these answers right?
Are you
She's like,
actually
I'm a communication
major?
major. Okay, last question is what is the maximum amount of credits students are allowed to take per semester without needing special permission? A, 19, B, 20, C, 21, or D, 22?
I was going to say 24, but that wasn't one of the options. So you guys go first.
I'm torn between 19 and 21.
Yeah, me too.
You know what? I'm full sending it. I'm going to say 21.
Okay,
I'll go 21 too.
you got it right. 21.
I didn't even guess, but I was about to say
Sorry.
21.
Good job, guys. 21.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people taking classes with 21 credits.
Wow.
I don't know how they do it.
That's a little too much for me. Even if I'm doing all electives.
I'm impressed.
Nope, too much for me. Yeah. But that's about it. That's all we have planned for today's episode. Just if you were interested about any of this, make sure to just, for example, like the flat test, make sure to go and look at info.flats.byu.edu. And if you're looking for any of the classes that we recommended, just go on ahead and look them up on our course code. Look it up on the BYU-Idaho course selection. But yeah, thanks you guys for listening for the episode, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
You've been listening to The Spot, a production of BYU-Idaho Radio. Today's hosts were me, Isabella Salazar.
Andy Ordonez.
Brogan Houston.
Valeria Coles.
The views and opinions of this podcast are not that of BYU-Idaho Radio or the university, and are solely the opinions of the hosts. This episode was edited by Robert Harris. Producers were the hosts with supervision by Brandon Isle and Natalia Hepworth. Our theme music is Finding Happiness by DJ Quads and The Perpetual Ticking of Time by Artificial Music. To listen to more episodes of The Spot, like and follow us on social media or visit our website at byui.edu/radio and click podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to the BYU-Idaho Radio podcast wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review of the show and leave a comment on what we should talk about next.